Yeah.
So welcome aboard, everyone. This is our last session, I think, with you, Orla.
Absolutely. It's hard to believe this is our 5th session, so it's great to be with you again today as we kind of bring everything together. And I suppose we look to the future, and we really are excited that the mentoring has started, and that we're beginning to really get to know you and to help you in as best we can. Just to mention, Sonia is going to join us just to get our video that we can see everybody. But I think we're gonna get going, if that's okay, because we've actually a huge amount of ground to cover today. Your presenters today are myself, it's been a little while since I've seen you all, and Sonia joins us as well, who's been with you over the last few weeks. Sonia, do you want to say hello there?
Hi everyone, I hope you can all hear me. So Orla will start with a little introduction, and then I'll take you on the process of writing project proposals, and we'll have a dynamic session, something to look forward to. As I kind of introduced in the email before, this will be especially useful for you all. I know you had questions and interest previously into the funding opportunities in this kind of session, and we will have opportunities to ask questions. So maybe even while we're speaking, think about all the questions you ever had about funding opportunities and how to write a project proposal, and we'll have a little question session, and then we'll have a little break and continue to the actual funding opportunities, which will be covered by Orla's lovely part of presentation.
Brilliant.
And it is a final one, but we can always stay connected, and you can always email us if you have any questions. So I'll just start then.
Great, and we can see everybody now. Yes. Bless you, Sonia. What would we do without you? It's amazing. Lovely to see everybody.
Sonia.
It makes it real that we're not just speaking into an absolute vacuum. So good to see you all. So today, I'll just minimize that. Yeah, perfect. So you can see the screen, okay, everybody? Yeah. We okay? So we have three sessions to look at this morning. We're looking at grant proposal writing, and just some really tips that I have learned over 20 years of doing this, and never giving up, and having a good success rate, and learning all the time as to what makes a winning application. We're going to look at the absolute myriad of funding opportunities that are open right now, and things that I'd love to put on your radar and get you, I suppose, thinking about how you can maximize your opportunities for the next year, basically. And I suppose post-COVID especially, what has changed in your organization, and what funding is there to match that. Don't forget, we can help you through this process as part of our mentoring process. So I know some of you have sessions with Gillian and with some of the other team members, but certainly there would be time, and I'm very happy that myself and Sonia can help you on funding opportunities, individual ones that you see today and you say, oh, I'd love to know more about that, or how can I approach that, and how I can help. So we're doing funding roadmaps for a few of the organizations that are involved in the program, and we will have those ready actually this week. So we're really, this is the freshest information you're going to get, and we're going to look at finally at the future, what's coming down the tracks. It's very hard to predict, I suppose, in the current climate, and with COVID everything has changed, but certainly there are some big trends. I know we looked at them in the beginning a little bit, but we're bringing them home to you now, and I suppose these trends would be really good to weave into your funding opportunities, so they do fit and they make sense to be in this section. You know me, those of you that know me, I love my food, and I also love food projects, which I'll mention a little bit later on. But for me, the success in securing funding is literally about making a cake. It's about the great ingredients, the best of ingredients that you can have. So they're being local, close to home, a great project team, a great idea, And then I suppose it's about following a recipe. So following the application form section by section. And we're actually going to take you through that today and just make it a little bit easier for you to win, I suppose, and be more confident and competent in writing the applications. So just in terms of the why bother, I mean, certainly people say to me, oh, you know, it's such hard work writing a funding application, and you know, it just takes up so much of my time and I don't have time. I always say to both businesses and communities, if you had to I suppose earn that much margin in your business from that you would get through a grant, think of it like that. It's much, you know, it really does help accelerate what you're doing and contribute to your sustainability. The challenge is being, I suppose, there's so many programs out there and which one is right for you. And this is a constant. This has never changed over the years, and it's actually getting more complex. Sometimes, I suppose, we're looking at what we feel is onerous administration and, you know, the monitoring of it. You know, getting a grant is great, but then we have to deliver upon it. But I suppose the more you do it, the better you get at it. And, you know, it's just about having good systems in place. Very much we're in a period of sorry, Sonia, you're just gone ahead of me there.
Yeah.
Of insecurity, you know, when we have stop-start funding and over-reliance on just one funding source can make us all a little bit nervous and allow us just to focus on short-term goals, which can be to the detriment of our organisations. So that is a challenge. How can we find funding that's going to give us a longer viewpoint or a longer lens? Finding, I suppose, one thing that I always talk to companies and communities about is, you know, the funding programs are there and they have a set of criteria, and you need to match what you're doing to suit their funding programs. And sometimes that's tricky because, you know, you want to do what you want to do and you know what your priorities are. So that can sometimes cause a mismatch. And then there was COVID, you know, that has caused a huge challenge in the whole area of funding. Your match funding resources mightn't be as strong as they have been in the past. You know, certainly some of the funding has been a little bit controversial, I suppose, in terms of, you know, how available it is, and you know, but what that's just a challenge. And I suppose on the pro side, there's still you know, really, I think it's a good positive funding environment for both capital, for marketing and training, and indeed to a certain extent staffing as well. So I suppose before you start, just what I like you to do is to look, I suppose, at, leaving aside the priorities of the possible funders, and we'll talk about those later, but what are your priorities for the next 1 to 3 years and then further down the line? And I think even looking at the 1 to 3 years is a good window. I know many of you work on community services plans and community service program plans and plans for your organizations. But what are the priorities within that? Are you looking at, you know, surviving? Are you, do you feel that it's now time to grow? And that growth happens in disruptive times, but more so it actually accelerates innovation, and we looked at that in module 1. So are you ready to grow? Have you no choice but to grow because things that you were doing in the past have changed? And again, this brings up the whole area of new opportunities. When you're doing something new, it's time to look for more new funding to do it. So what would you change about your organization? You know, are the same activities? Have you changed your catchment area? Have you gone further afield? I know many of you have done that in the COVID situation. Has management structure stayed the same, or does it need to change and evolve? And the way that we deliver what we do, has that changed, or what you know, would you use the same methods going forward? I think one thing in particular, and we look at this later on, is that digitization has changed the way that we operate, the way that we communicate, the way that we make our livings. So I think that has to be reflected in your priorities going forward. Are you competent enough? Have you got the technology? Have you got the skills? You know, how is that going to impact? So just to set the scene, would you believe that about funders nationally tell us that between 50 and 60% of all applications can be turned down immediately because they're not eligible or don't meet the guidelines, the criteria that's set down. So I think this goes back to the mismatch of when we find a fund and we think we are suitable for it and we might not be. But the Associated Charitable Foundations tell us that they get a large number of poorly targeted and poorly executed applications. And this is, they look after, I suppose, charitable foundation type of applications, but it's the same principle, that it makes it difficult to identify those organisations most worthy of support. And I think for me, the secret, and I've worked in the local enterprise office for 7 years before setting up Momentum, the difference in assessing funding is the mediocrity of an application, and then when you show excellence in the attention to detail. And that attention to detail is the #1 difference in winning applications and those that don't succeed. I'm viewing your screen. Sonia, can you give me control? Sorry. Okay.
Actually, I'm sharing this.
Okay, perfect. So attention to detail, back to the baking. Look at our lovely shapes and using a template. Some of the things before we get into it that I just want to highlight to you, and I just want you to have these in your mind as we go through this morning. One of the big things is to show that your project is additional, that you're not competing with others. And typically in social enterprise, we are collaborating or we're adding value to a community. We're doing something different. But really be careful to articulate that and show that it's different. Funders, people buy people, and funders invest in you. You as a manager, you as a community activist, you as an organization. They need to believe that you have the credibility and the competencies to do that. And sometimes I think one of the biggest criticisms I would have of organizations is that you undersell yourself when you're describing yourself. And what I'd love you to do is take the learning from our storytelling and bring it right through and become, I suppose, make sure that your application and your description of yourself becomes enthusiastic and persuasive. So you are selling. So when you're writing your application, write in an interesting way that captures the spirit and energy of your project. So again, a little bit around the journalistic style or the storytelling techniques that we shared with you earlier on in the course. Definitely talk to the funder before you apply to make sure that you are eligible. They love to hear from you, and many of them will actually look at a draft and assist you on the way. So they're there to help. It's always competitive. Sometimes funds, I know some of the funds that I would work on, we might have only a 2 in 10 chance. We might have a 6 in 10 chance. So you're always trying to put your best foot forward and remember that it is a competitive process. So describing the project truthfully and succinctly. So break it down into bite-sized pieces. And I'm going to show you a little example later on of how to do that. Make sure that it's easy to read and well presented, that it's looking well. And again, back to our kind of marketing approach and making sure that, it stands out, that it's a well-crafted application. Again, I suppose, while we like to be enthusiastic and really, I suppose, concentrate on what we can deliver, I suppose we can't overpromise either, because sometimes we have to deliver what we say is in the application, and sometimes we can find that we don't have enough resources to do it. So don't overpromise. You don't have to if your application can be strong enough. And I suppose one of the other things is it always takes longer to do it than you think. Yes, you have examples and templates from other applications that you've used in the past, but give it the time that it needs. So work back from the application deadline and make a plan, do a section a week or whatever process that you use, but it takes longer to develop and give yourself that opportunity. Okay, so that's just a little bit of a scene setting, and it's back to Sonia for looking at the grant proposal writing now, if that's okay.
Thank you, Orla. So that was so necessary to kind of give the opportunity for all of the participants to think about the world of grants and applying for projects and writing project proposals. So it gives you kind of a task again or a homework to sit down with your team or with yourself and think about it and think about your resources and what you have. One of the resources that we want to give you today is the overall form of grant proposal and how to write it. I know some of you know how to do that because you've actually had a chance to apply and you've been successful, while someone else might have never even tried. So we tried to put together a series of slides that will benefit all of you as a diverse group here. To start with, you actually need to know what the project is and what the grant or project proposal is. So the project is anything that's a planned process. When you're putting a plan idea out there on a piece of paper, and if it's based around a certain idea and you want to reach a certain objectives and you need resources, that's a project. So it's like a little economy, microeconomy on a piece of paper. The grant is the funding that you're getting and what you need to develop your project idea. And what you really need now is to develop the skill of writing project proposals. As Orla said, make it good. That means go back and check it with your team. And if you're the only person who's writing it, be sure to have someone else to go over it and check it and make sure that it's neat and nice and easy to read and friendly to read as well. So obviously it has to have clarity. If you go back to your project proposal and it's not easy to read for yourself either, and you're getting tired even reading it or going through it, and you have some problems, and you might think, oh, what did I mean when I wrote this? That's your alarm sign to stop and fix that portion of your proposal, work on it. So don't just leave it. I know you might get tired of it, but then again, not all the project proposals are tiresome, and they're not all that, you know, hard to do. There are some pretty easy forms out there. What's really good about today's session is it will get you ready for the easy ones and for the harder ones. So always remember, you need to convince, and you might want to go back in your head to all of our previous sessions when we talked about selling and who you are and who your target group is. Just thinking in the means of who am I speaking to, who am I targeting with what I'm writing is a really good method to convince and to sell. And it's a friendly kind of way of doing things, of doing business, of proposing ideas. So keeping in mind that you don't actually have competitors in your community, you have friends and partners. That's the way to convince while writing project proposals. It's a little bit different than when you're selling something in a corporate world. It's not, okay, let's run and who wins the race. It's let's collaborate. So it's a way, project proposal or grant proposal is a way to present steps how to solve a problem, and the problem needs to be relevant and eligible if there's a public call or if there's a certain donor that you're aiming towards. So we've kind of indicated that this needs to be done, internal analysis. Orla mentioned some of these bits. So when you're writing a project proposal, when you're doing anything as a social enterprise, you need to continually analyze yourself and know who you are. There's a difference between responding to a public call that's out there, so a call for submitting project proposals, towards doing something on your own initiative. So there's a difference there in how you approach it, even though for both instances you need to have a written project proposal. So the public call usually has a theme, has deadlines, has rules, eligibility criteria, budget in mind, and then you have to align your idea versus those rules and call objectives, and you have to put it in the forms that are available and made available to you by whoever's publishing the public call. On your own initiative, that means that you have an idea and you've kind of put it in written, following the rules that we'll set out for you now. And then you're looking for ways to fund it. And we'll talk more about some funding opportunities, the types of them, and then Orla will take you in depth into what's actually out there right now and what you can apply for what right now. One of the ways to have your own initiative is a fundraising campaign, for example. So we do have some examples of this, these bits to make a difference for you, to make it clear what's reacting to a public call versus what's reacting to your own instincts and writing a project proposal around the idea and then asking for a donor and for funds. This first example here is when we have a public call, and Orla prepared this example for you, and I think Orla would be a great moment now to kind of say a bit more about Community Heritage Grant Scheme. So prepare your pens and paper and take your notes here.
Yeah, I had Coothall very much in mind when I saw this one going live. And it is just an example of a typical funding call that opens. This one opens every year, every September. It's a Community Heritage Grant Scheme, and I think it is intended to enable communities and heritage NGOs to continue their work, or they have a COVID slant on it this year, and it's to improve access and inclusion to heritage sites that apply good heritage practice to management of places, collections or objects, including buildings. So buildings are just one part of heritage. I know Unabon and a number of other projects have, you know, cultural heritage, tourism heritage as a part of their offering. So for example, the grant you could all and the John McGahern Centre would be ideal because they have a collection. So for example, this fund is open right now. It's 80% funding to a maximum of €15,000. And I know that Coothall are working on, you know, COVID has meant that they need to change the make some alterations to their building to create accessibility. So €15,000 available of a grant at 80% to do that. The application form is done online. Unfortunately, it's only in a week's time, so we'll be bringing this to everybody's attention now. And again, they want projects. What's interesting at the moment is that some funders want projects to spend quickly, which can be really good if you're ready to go. So this project has to be completed before the 23rd of November. And you have to state that in the application. So it's an interesting one there, Sanya. I think it was just one, and it's just an example of a public call. We'll be going through many more in my session later on, but it just gives you an idea. So this, again, the slides will go out directly after this call, and all the funding links are hyperlinked. If you see it underlined here, you will see that it is hyperlinked.
Perfect, thank you, Orla. And you'll get this. Yeah, is there a question? No, I heard someone's voice. So you'll get all of these links with the presentation as well. So don't worry about the links, everyone. And yeah, this is a lovely example to just show in this place when we mentioned public calls. And it's kind of good to point it out because the deadline is really near. There's another example of public call here.
I love this one, Sonia. This is
doesn't it?
This will bring Patricia and Sabrina and the team back to last year, pre-COVID, when A Taste of Boyle set the culinary world of Boyle alight with some lovely events as part of the Taste the Island celebration. So you'd done a lot of work, put a huge amount of hard work into those, and they were really successful. And I just saw this leader call open or be promoted at the end of last week. It's a food a call for projects to come in that support artisan, micro and small food producers. So you're not a food producer, but what you have in Boyle and in other places is you have a network of producers that you support through their marketing, whether it be through the farmers market or some other, shop online or whatever it may be. So this is a fund that's relevant from €5,000, and it will fund the capital, but marketing and promotion of both private commuters and also community promoters at 75%. So that's an interesting one. It's just gone live. The closing date is the 9th of October, but I thought it could be nice to build on. It's just an opportunity, perhaps, if yourselves in Una One wanted to build on Taste of Boyle plus your work on farmers market and all of that. So just thought it was a nice one. It's very fresh. It only went out, I think, at the end of last week. It's opening on the 11th of September. You have to send in an expression of interest there. But again, it's on the Roscommon Leader Partnership website and Facebook page.
And Orla, do you know, maybe is it possible to apply in partnership with someone? Could this group use their networks and the fact that they're here together?
So there would be one lead applicant who would operate as part of that network, if you know what I mean. So that could be Una One Tourism, and have the producers that benefit from that will be part of your network.
Lovely. So we have few nice examples here already, and this is just to get warmed up, so we'll have more.
Yes, we're warming up only, absolutely, yeah.
People are taking notes, so that's a good sign.
Good.
Take things further there. We are giving few examples of what it means to have your own initiative and then take it somewhere and then look for examples. Now, the funny thing is this one is with Google, and actually the first thing you do when you have a project sitting there is Google for the solutions. Now, this one Orla also found, and I think it's ongoing. Is it, Orla?
Yes, it is. It was only announced in August, and Google actually can be very they take all their advertising money, I suppose, and they take a small percentage of that, gives back to the community and back to you know, causes that they like. So they have this initiative called Grow with Google, and it helps SMEs but also NGOs such as yourself adapt by learning how to operate online. So what they have is a €4 million fund in advertising credits and grants, which are specifically ring-fenced for NGOs like yourself. So it's absolutely brilliant. The link that I've given there will bring you through a 3-step process. First of all, you request a Google for Nonprofit account. So you open this account with Google and you declare to them that you're not for profit. They will verify that information. So a CLG structure, a charity structure, that type of structure is required. They will verify you by email, and then you can activate and use their individual products. So that could be advertising credits, which would be absolutely brilliant if you had something to promote, either a fundraising campaign or whatever. So it's just a nice one, but it's up to you, if you know what I mean, to apply. There's no closing deadline. It's there to be used, and it could bring your marketing activity much further and accelerate it. So,
so
it's
this
there.
One is, so this one is there even for your internal needs in marketing. So when you're writing a project proposal, the good thing is you kind of analyze yourself and you know what you need, and if you need to invest more, for example, in digital marketing. If you find that that's the case, definitely when you feel strong enough and ready enough, or if you have those volunteers helping you with some admin work or marketing side of things, maybe ask them to approach this link together and to start this initiative for yourself. Another example here that I found for your own initiative type of thing, which is not very often, and there's not many of those things out there, but still it's worth, when you have some time, it's worth checking if there are any institutions, public bodies, international funds available that are accepting ongoing unsolicited project proposals. Now, one of those is US Embassy in Ireland. I just remembered that in Bosnia and Herzegovina, US Embassy was very active when I was there. You could always apply for some funds with them, and that worked really well. So I went to check if there's one for Ireland. So they do actually have an open call, and there's a form on their website, and the link is just over there. It's not huge amounts, but it could be helpful. You know, 1,000 or 2,000 euros could help you with some burning things or some really fresh ideas that don't need much financing, but you just need someone to step in with that money. There's another great example of when you have your project there and you're looking for funds. Orla found this one. Orla, do you want to take us into this one as well, please?
Yeah, this is one that I've been following a while, and I just it's a visitor attraction in the southeast, and it's called Secret Valley Wildlife Park. They're obviously using a lot of they've had to reinvent themselves, I suppose, in terms of online fundraising, and I thought it was a good example of somebody doing it really well. So this Indiegogo, they have a campaign at the moment on indiegogo.com project. So it's Save the Secret Valley Wildlife Park, and it's helping them to provide to do the work that they do. So I know from the promoter that they had set a goal of €5,000 to raise on Indiegogo. They have you can set a flexible goal which is much higher, which they set at €40,000, but their intent was to raise 5,000. And as I checked this morning, I did the slide yesterday, and I checked this morning, they've raised over €5,500. What I'd love you to look at is the way that they tell their story on their campaign page is just absolutely the best I've seen. It's just beautiful, and it's somebody speaking from the heart, which is great. So €5,500 within a couple of weeks is a serious amount of money, and I think it's really impressive. It builds on a previous fundraising campaign that they did. So remember, Indiegogo as an option, have a good route around their project and see how it has how they have done it. They have a lovely little video in it, and the whole lot.
Indiegogo seems, Orla, like a good option. Some of these crowdfunding sites ask you to get to your financial goal completely, or else you can't withdraw the money. While here it seems that you can even aim for more and then get less, and you still get your funds.
Get your full funds. Yeah, that's what's nice about this one for sure.
Do you still have something on this one, Orla?
Yeah, the next slide. Yeah. It's not letting me move. Sonia, can you move the slide on, please?
Yeah, I think because we're both now in, I'll just move it. It won't let me either.
We're frozen in time.
One of us needs to not click it. Oh, there it is. Is it this?
Perfect. Yeah, we're too enthusiastic. So I mentioned an earlier campaign that that this organization did, and it was very much about 7 weeks post their closure in March. They set up a GoFundMe campaign, and they raised over €9,000. And how they marketed this one was that it was an emergency appeal. So the use of the word emergency was important in their marketing, and it was very much about how, you know, they've closed their gates to the public, and it's taking its toll, and they've no government funding, and they still have all their overheads and everything. So it was just a really nice way to, I suppose, again, the link is there. I've that hyperlinked for you to go to see. You know, so in fairness, that is almost €15,000 that they have raised in a pandemic by using online fundraising as a tool. So they have to be commended for that. The way that they marketed themselves is very, very good. So it could be whatever cause, it could be a cultural cause, it could be a community, you know, a community appeal of some nature. But I just want to bring it to your attention as an example of what I think is really good practice. Yeah.
Perfect. So it all connects, all the dots that we've been covering through a series of workshops. And the storytelling is a huge and important bit of all of this. This is one more use of your storytelling skill. It's the fundraise. whether it's in your project proposal for a certain public call or you're fundraising, crowdfunding yourself, you need to go even deeper into storytelling. And these examples, the links that Orla just provided, will show you how it's done in a most wonderful way there. And you can just copy and paste the style. So a little bit later, we'll have more on fundraising and more calls and more of those things. For now, we'll go a bit deeper into what the form is of project writing, what the elements are, and how to actually write a project proposal. Once you know this, it's really easy to adjust your skill to any public call or any donor that's out there. There will always be different forms, but you will quickly learn and notice that the elements are pretty much the same. So the first thing that we put on the list, it might not be the first thing that you write, but it is kind of on the list because it comes before the project proposal, is the cover letter. So it's your opportunity to formally introduce yourself and to say what you're submitting, but more importantly, this is where you inspire whoever's reading your project proposal. Ideally, as Orla mentioned, you will be in touch with your donor before you submit this, so you'll have some connections, some knowledge of them, and that's all good for you as well, because they will recognize you when they start reading your cover letter and your project proposal. Cover letter, just as when you're applying for a job, doesn't need to be too long. It needs to be still clear and straight to the point, but it is your opportunity to start that first impression on a good foot. Summary is something that comes first when people are reading your project proposal, but it is the last thing that you write. Summary will have information about, quick information about who you are, what's the project name, what the objectives are, and all of the main bits of the project proposal that we'll go through now. So it's maybe a one-pager. Then about the applicant, that's a really important bit. Again, remember your story and who you are. This is not just an emotional bit where you tell your story to aim for emotions. It's not like when you're going towards your clients. You can still kind of impress with the warm approach, but here you really need to convince that you can do whatever you're proposing to do, that you have the skills, that you have the staff. You need to tell them your background, what you did before, how long are you on the scene, and stuff like that. So remember when we connected in the storytelling, when we connected emotion and story with information and intellect and data, this is what you have to do in the section about you. So just say who you are. Obviously, if you've done the exercises or done the bits that we were talking about in the previous sessions, it's easy to copy and paste from these bits. And the beauty of having a project proposal done for the first time is that you can always use some of the bits and copy paste it into a new project proposal. Of course, go back and check if anything needs to be adjusted. The next thing you do is...
Just one thing on that, Sanya. Every time I write an application and I cut and I paste, I bring it up one more notch. Just improve one sentence, two sentences, and it's just...
That's lovely.
It don't always use the same one. Just bring something fresh in there. Bring it up one more notch. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's lovely advice, and that's how you grow and you get your self-esteem on the road as an individual and as the organization. That's actually a lovely hint, a tip, and I would advise you to put that in your notebook right now, because it's not on the slides. So the problem is why you're there. There was a problem that you noticed in the community, and you want to solve it, and that's why the donor is there, because they want to solve some kind of problems as well. So problem definition is the important portion of project proposal. And that's where you give evidence that there is a problem. And that's where you back up what you're saying by certain research. Now, you might have done a survey and that's your research is well done there, primary research, or you might have noticed some information that existed out there, research done by someone. You can use statistics. You can go to your local PPN website and see what they have about a certain problem. Research Google and talk to institutions who are relevant for the problem that you're solving, and get whatever you know that exists as a problem. You need to justify it and put evidence in there. Now, the target group, again, we go back to target groups. It's a bit similar like when you're doing stuff commercially, and it's a good thing that we learned how to analyze target groups. Slightly different though for project proposal writing. We'll show you later why it's different, but basically for now, just have in mind that it is who benefits from the project, and that your target groups have to be aligned with the target groups of your donor. Objectives are the next section in the project proposal writing. We'll talk more about what types of objectives are out there. There's an overall one and specific ones. I'll tell you what they are. Right now, make a note for yourself that it's important what impact they're making. So objectives are about what are you changing in a society, and what will the society or your community or whoever you're aiming at, what will they have different, what's the difference between their status or their situation after you finish your project as opposed to before you started. Activities and methodology are what gets you sorted, and here again you impress the donor because it shows that you really put a thought into the process that you're proposing. So everything you want to achieve must be broken down into activities, and you have to make notes on how you'll do it. That's your methodology. Now, right after that, you make a time plan. The time plan is when you put those activities into perspective of time, how many months you need to do what, and when do you do which activity. So if you're giving workshops, when is it that you're planning the workshop? Is it in January? When is it that you're bringing or engaging lecturer, contacting them? Is it February? And are you maybe implementing your workshop in March? And for yourself, you can also add who's doing what in your organization. So it kind of, the time plan with activities gives you everything you need to have when you're implementing the project once you're successful. Evaluation is very important for the donor. So you need to show that you're thinking about how to actually check if you've done things successfully. If you've reached your results, you have to show how will you be measuring things. Next thing they're looking for is how sustainable your project is, which means when you're out of this project, when it's finished, will there be something that stays afterwards, and will it be self-sustaining? Will you empower some groups to continue doing what you've been doing? Will the results be there still after you're gone? And you really want to find a way to answer this as yes, and to show how exactly. Budget is something that you put kind of towards the end of the project proposal, but you definitely are thinking about the budget throughout your writing process, because it changes things for you. It influences everything, and you might have questions about the budget writing here for us and for your donor. This is a good thing to ask questions about. You don't want to be wrong with the budget, so get in touch with the potential donor, whoever gave the public call, and ask those questions, and they will get to know you from that communications. And usually there's some annexes that need to be included, so it's usually a letter of support, a partnership, maybe agreement with someone, the evidence of need to report financial information, or whatever is there listed by the donor. So to start with now, a bit more into detail, problem solving is what gets you started with the project proposal writing. So that's where you start. You're writing it because there's a problem. and you need to state it in a problem statement section. So you're basically talking about, why is your problem important? Why is it justified? What does it solve? How is it connected to the donor and to the public goal? You need to know how you found out about the problem and say that, and is there research, are there statistics? So go to your community institutions for those, and of course use Google as a research, and you can even do some research yourself by conducting surveys. If there's multiple problems that you've noticed in a community, you can't solve them all at the same time, so you need to prioritize and choose. And you will do so by thinking, okay, what does this public goal prioritize? What are the best chances? At the same time, you need to think, what am I an expert in? Am I the right organization or the person to solve this problem? So those are some of the questions to ask yourself when you want to choose which problem to solve. Or if you want to check if you've chosen the right problem, ask yourself those questions, because if you're not the one who's experienced in something, you might want to go the other way, or you might want to partner with someone who actually has more experience. What are the causes of the problem? This is very important questions, because causes will lead you directly to the solutions to forming project objectives. So always, when you're focusing on a problem, always go into asking yourself what caused that problem. All of that will lead you to a final solution. And the evidence there that the problem exists, there's a little trick or a test that you can do. You can ask yourself, what's the difference in succeeding and failing in this project? So imagine a situation where you succeed and notice what's the difference there. And when you find it, that's your evidence that this is a good thing to do. Now there's an example here, and that's a good example in how to define a problem and start with designing a project proposal based on a problem that you did. Once again, this is an example Orla found. So Orla, could you present the Woodford Youth Hall problem solving here for us, please?
Perfect. This is my local community where I live in my marital home of County Galway. But the youth hall in our village was looking for funding support. So basically the roof was falling in. It was as simple as that. So we did a leader application, which gave us €80,000 towards the cost of it. So I just wanted to share with you in the next 2 slides the text that I used to put that problem into context as such, and this is how I wrote it in the application. So I'm just going to take you through some of the headline points of it, and it'll just get you, I suppose, focused maybe on just reflecting on your own writing style and making sure that you're hitting the right notes as such. So I wrote in it that it was once a thriving hub of youth activity and engagement, which it was, but it's obviously gone into serious decline. And I was saying that it faces restricted activities and even closure. So a bit of drama in there, a bit of a sense of urgency to show them, yes, we really need this money. So I think that was an important part, due to an unsafe roof, which was in urgent need of redevelopment. I'm weaving into the summary how the competency of the group behind it. So I'm saying with the rejuvenated committee in place, and I'm showing that was relatively recent, I wrote this last year, and the promoters wish to complete a building refurbishment. So that's the building. So you could stop there, but I didn't want to stop there. I wanted to show what the building was going to be used for, to launch a new program of youth activities for its growing population. So I'm getting a lot of information into there, the growing population, and the purpose to which this money is going to be used. This was for a youth measure that Leader had opened last year. So again, I'm going into just a little bit more detail in addition to the roof repairs. So I'm specifying what they are, but I'm not over concentrating on the roof. This redevelopment will see the installation of acoustic panels. And in brackets, I'm showing what that investment is going to do. So it's going to increase the music and dance use of the hall. So I'm showing benefit of what that investment is going to be, and purchase of special needs sensory play equipment, which will be used by the very active parent and toddler group who meet weekly in the hall. So I'm giving a bit of nuts and bolts, bread and butter examples there. I go on then to show how it's aligned into different things. So again, the village has undergone community rejuvenation, which meant that that we're seeing new families relocate to the village. And I suppose in that way, I'm kind of showing that this is building on other funding that's been invested in the area. So I'm giving, that we are another part of the bigger picture jigsaw that needs to be done for our community. And I'm given specifics, and I go into it in more detail in the application, but I'm saying that we specifically serve a catchment area of 6 feeder national primary schools. That's exact information. I name them, and upwards of 360 plus young people in our catchment area. So the funder knows if they fund us, this is our target group. This is the people that will benefit from the activity. Again, I'm just going again, the urgency is mentioned, just again, use of the language to show that, we don't have time to be messing around here. We need the funding and we need it soon. And we need it so that we can offer a comprehensive youth service for the catchment area. I'm also, you can see in brackets that I'm showing how it contributes to county policy. So the Corlin and Og and the GRD, which was Galway Rural Development Strategic Action 5.5. So I had looked up and seen which measure that the leader program that we fit against, and I'm saying that we are fully responding to that measure by offering a youth wellbeing and recreation hub. So I hope that helps to show you just a little bit of context as to how, I suppose, you can start to write in a way that ticks the boxes, I suppose, across a number of different areas that Sanya has just gone through with us. But it's good to see an example sometimes, yeah. So I backed that up with research amongst those 360 young people, and, I think we'd only 40 responses, but it was still good that we were able to say we conducted a survey, etc.
So I just have a huge need to emphasize now, on these 2 slides. Now these 2 slides and the way, and I think this is all recorded, so just everyone maybe just make a note for yourself to come back on this portion, because these 2 slides and the way they were explained and presented is something that needs to be listened to a few times, just because it's gold and it can be found anywhere else. Any other kind of resource that you can Google out there will just have someone's bit of project proposal or analysis without this very good and needed explanation that Orla just did, why she actually emphasized some of these words, how she used them, and what she did in a certain sentence. So that's just what I want to say. Come back to these 2 slides, everyone. They're really, really useful for writing project.
And I would just ask people, I'm not saying this is perfect, but I know I got the money. But if you just have a look at the way that you've written your recent applications or the ones that you're writing in the future, and just small changes can make a huge difference. So the attention to detail, the 6 schools, the 360 students, just give them more data, more information. Yeah.
It's a perfect way of storytelling with including data and intellectual information, and nothing in this text is there in vain. So everything has a purpose. So really important 2 slides for everyone to come back to. I just wanted to say thanks for that. Now to go further, I always want to say, oh, this is the most important bit, but they're all very important. That's why it's a structured project proposal template, and nothing is here to be lost. So we have to give equal attention to everything. It is the heart and soul of a project proposal when you look at objectives. So that's what is the next portion of this presentation: objectives and then expected results. I promised to explain a bit more about objectives. There's an overall objective and then there's specific objectives. Even though not each project proposal call or the project proposal template will have these 2 parts distinguished, I would like you to be aware that there are these 2 things out there, And once you have this knowledge, it will make your life easier. Even when the donor doesn't ask this type of writing from you, still in your head, you'll have things sorted. It's a knowledge that you can draw from. Overall objective is exactly what the word says. It covers everything else. It's long-term, and it's kind of over-promising. But don't be afraid of it, because you're not expected to solve what you promise in overall objective to 100%. Overall objective is when you're saying that you will improve the state of world hunger, for example. You know, when beautiful women and those competitions of beauty say that they want world peace. Well, that's an overall objective, world peace. No one is going to, unfortunately, reach that probably, but contributing to world peace with your project with a specific set of objectives, that's something. But it all falls under the overall objective. If you look at the public call, you'll certainly see a hint of overall objective there. Sometimes the donor has actually stated what the overall thing is. So you just want to align with that, with saying what your overall project objective is. You want to improve the state of something, you want to raise awareness about something. So those kind of words are to be used in defining the overall objective. But then when you go to specific objectives, this is where you need to be more clear about what you're doing. This is where you use numbers, and they have to be reachable and specific. So you're going to work with young families towards reaching exactly some number of something. You're going to educate migrants in these and these areas, and that number of people will be included. So stuff like that, that's specific objectives to do something. Out of all of these things, when they're done and finished and implemented, what comes out is expected results, and you have to say what those are in your project proposal as well. So what they are, they're services or products, and they'll become available after you finish your products, and your beneficiaries, your target group, will use them and will find them useful. They're more specific than objectives. They're measurable. So think of examples: how many of something was printed, how many people were educated, how many of whatever was created, how many attendees you had on a certain event. So those are your results, and they're all connected to the problem, because everything draws right from that problem and the causes of the problem that you identified before. Now, beneficiaries and partners and stakeholders, again, people, all the people that you'll be working with, you'll be working towards, that you want to help. Whose problem are you solving? Why are you, remember when you were saying who you are, that's why are you important, why are you an important entity to solve this problem for them? How are you connected to your target group? What makes you their representative? Describing the target group, we've done a bit there when we were talking about commercial target groups. It's similar in the way you can use same kind of thinking, but these are not commercial goals or objectives. Just have that in mind. So try to estimate how big the target group is, who they are, again demographics, a bit of statistics there with their problems, and why are you choosing that target group? How are they connected to the public call and to the donor's mission and vision statement? And then you have direct and you have indirect target. Am I pronouncing that right? Indirect target group. Now the direct one is the one that's directly going to use your products from this project, your services, your results. The results are going to be made within that target group, direct one. So whoever's attending the workshop, for example. But indirect target group can be the families of the people that are becoming more educated by the workshop. Even communities will benefit, because if we're teaching you how to become very successful social entrepreneurs, even though you're now successful. But if we're taking everything to a bigger step, then your families and your community are obviously going to benefit from that. So that's indirect. So try to estimate how much. So if you say that Roscommon is going to benefit from the project as an indirect group, it's easy to find the population of Roscommon, for example, and put that number in there. It's really impressive, and it shows that you are aware of your surroundings and of your impact. Who can you partner with? Again, think about, do you need a partner? When you're saying, do you need a partner, does the project call for a partner? Do they ask that from you? Is it necessary? Is that an eligible thing to do, a legitimate thing to do with the project proposal? And then think about who you could benefit, what kind of partnership you would benefit from. Think about their skills and the gaps that they would fill in that particular project. Also, do they have the interest? And it builds on the relationships. And I just want to say, within this group, I'm sure some good partnerships could be formed, and you could definitely go together towards winning some of the funding opportunities that Orla is mentioning throughout this workshop. Just on how to visualize the impact. So it's all about the impact. So the goals, objectives, all of these terms might sound a bit complicated, but goals, objectives, the results, all of that you're doing makes an impact, and that's what the donor wants to see. So how are you changing the picture in your community? What's happening after that? Now, the good thing about technology and trends and where all of this is taking us is that it's very user-friendly to show impact in a visual way. And we've talked before about communicating visually through images. So we just wanted to make a statement here and remind you that you can really feel comfortable about showing your impact in a visual way, such as this one. You see, the Drumshanbo Food Hub has shown what they've done with their project. So even if you're not reading all of the text here, it's easy to note that they're done something really important for the community. 82 jobs, 2 tenant businesses exporting all over the world, 3 businesses headed by female entrepreneurs. So, and you can see that eight businesses were involved. So using infographics, as we were showing you before, or using Canva to show your impact in a visual way, if the form allows it, even in a project proposal, might be a good thing. Check with your donor. But even after you've done the project, to report to the donor or to show and promote your project to the public, use the visualization to talk about your impact. There's another
Sonia, just on that one, it doesn't have to be economic benefit, and I think that's something I really wanted to stress, that this one was for a presentation and we were looking for funding for Drumshanbo Community Council for the Community Enterprise Project, but it can be the number of contacts that you have, how many phone calls, how many people have you helped, how many dinners have you served, how many people have trained with you, how many gone on to get jobs. Whatever metrics they are, I think if we claim them, we add them up and we claim them, and we make sure, that this would be brilliant content on your website or as a press release to say at the end of the year, we did this. And I think when you do it visually, and this is something that Gillian in our design team can help you with as part of the mentoring, it can just be something powerful and gives instant communication. Yeah.
And isn't it, Orla, what's beautiful about these things, if you're doing things right and evaluating what you're doing. So if you do a survey after you've done a certain activity, and if you ask people, okay, how did this impact you? And they say positive things, then that's an impact that you can express in numbers and put it visually. So if people are happy with the workshop you've done, you can say, or if they've gotten projects approved because you educated them, then you can say, okay, 10 enterprises have gotten funds because of this. So it's all connected, the impact and the visual communication and evaluating, measuring what you've done and talking to people and telling stories. another way of showing
This is just another way, exactly. And what we did here was show economic benefit. So for every job that was being created, we said that they were, you know, that they added so much to the local economy by the regional, you know, payroll increase. And then we added up the total of the grant that we were looking for and divided by the number of jobs. That gave a cost per job. Now this was for an enterprise fund, but it just shows you that we didn't write a lot. We used a lot of visual communication or just did it in PowerPoint basically to show impact.
Okay.
So it can be done in a community context way as well.
Okay. Thank you, Orla. So we've done the visually appealing bit, and now we're here to talk about the budget. And I'll tell you a little secret. I've had the image here prepared, the one that would scare you maybe. There was a calculator there and all those complex things. And we don't actually want you to connect budgeting with all that hard and difficult bits to do, because it isn't really. You're probably very good at budgeting and you know them, you know your budget lines. So I'll just ask Orla to give you more information on budgeting, but just to pose the first question, even though this is kind of towards the end of the project where you display your budget, isn't it true that you're thinking about the budget and way before it's displayed? It's kind of something you have to have in mind at the start, at the beginning. It's a process, isn't it, Orla?
Very much so. Again, no matter how much funding we get, you know, we have to put in our own resources as well. So can we even afford to commence the project? It's probably a one. But again, I mean, I suppose I just wanted to talk through some of the key things that you need to do in preparation of your finances for your funding application. And the better you have this information ready, the easier this section will be to complete. So most funders will ask you for quotations. And to go through that may necessitate a tender process, and read that information very carefully. Each funder will be different. Very important to know your employee costs, or your, you know, the value of your, I also have it there, the value of your volunteer contributions. Leader have a way of calculating a cost per hour based on, I suppose, on what volunteers, and actually the Heritage Council also have that in the application that we mentioned earlier on. So know your employee costs and your volunteer costs, because certainly in some cases you can use the cost of your own contributions. So your volunteer, their time can go in as match funding, which is lovely as a non-cash element. Know your overhead costs, because in some cases you're allowed to put in a percentage towards the cost of overheads, which is brilliant. Have your last year's audit accounts ready as soon as you can, because there's no point in delaying it or waiting it, because each funder will require those audited accounts to be ready if that is your structure. If not, have a really good set of income and expenditure ready to show that you have, you know, that you're experienced in managing funding budgets, and that you have the financial capacity to complete the project. And again, one thing that I suppose some projects find hard is to do financial projections, you know, to show that impact, to show how the project will be sustainable after funding. And in many cases, it's great. There'll always be, I know in our Woodford Youth Hall, we have an accountant who we went to in the community and said, would you mind doing these for us? And they did, because they just have a template and put it into Excel. And we can share some Excel templates on doing financial projections with you. That's no problem. But again, I suppose it's just good to have them ready. It can be expensive to get your accountant to do them, and we don't want you to be spending money that you don't need to. So if we can try and get a volunteer or somebody in the committee that would be able to do those projections, and I can certainly, I've made a note to share some examples with you as to a financial planning template. Yeah.
Thank you, Orla. Budgets, I know, are usually the bit that worries people the most. I certainly know I've always had a question with each project proposal. It was always, if I had a question, if it was one question, it was from this section about budget. So I just want to say we're kind of coming closer to the end of this part, and we'll have questions and answers section and then a break. So if you have a question about budgeting for a project that you might be thinking about, please write it down and you can ask us just in a few minutes, okay? Now, as we're coming closer to the end of this section, sustainability kind of comes down to the end of the project proposal, but that doesn't mean it's less important. It's actually very important, and this is one section that organizations usually fail on. They kind of get tired towards writing towards the end of the project proposal, and they just put something in here, not really answering this question and not really giving good reasoning. So if you're, give yourself enough of time to write the project proposal. If you're becoming a bit tired, go and rest a little bit and then come back to this and do it properly, because it is a really important part. So we'll just break down this slide maybe in two different sections. And I just want to ask you, Orla, what's your definition of sustainability and how is it connected to risks? Maybe just explain a bit on that.
The two different parts, as you say. So sustainability is very much, I suppose, ensuring that your project will continue, that the project is viable, that you will be in existence post funding, and that this funding is going to help you become more sustainable. So going back to our projections, excuse me, we need to show that your project is sustainable after the investment is made in whatever that investment may be as part of your project. As you say, so you calculate your metrics, what difference is the project going to make, and that is part of showing the sustainability as well. But I really emphasize again, Sonia, as you said, people normally skirt over this section excuse me, and don't give it enough attention. So I think, if you go at it again with a good burst of energy, it will bring you up scoring again in many of the applications. But you need to show, I suppose, that internally that any risks that there are, so being honest, I suppose, about any challenges that you have and how you're addressing those challenges, how you're going to monitor it, how you're going to evaluate it, and how you're going to report it. So you're going to have audited accounts, you're going to have, a funder report every 6 months, whatever it may be. And if anybody wants, you can email me and I can send you some sections that I've done that would help you, give you an example of this section. And also address external risks. So again, COVID obviously is one thing, but it could be, a decrease in fundraising is a reason why you need this particular fund or whatever. So look at your external environment and itemize those risks and how you're going to tackle those risks. But again, give this more love and attention, this section, because it's some funders can allocate up to 20% for sustainability, in my experience. So and if you're getting tired and you're just cut and paste something that you've used before and it's not making a punch, just bring it up another notch. It should be great. Yeah, and I can send you a few examples if needed.
So super important to show how your project continues its life even when you're gone from it and when you're not managing it, which makes sense. If you're giving money to anyone, you really want the impact to kind of continue living even when nobody's doing the work on activities that were proposed. And that's the whole point of any grant call or any funding process. Now, this is a specific thing I wanted to include, and again, this is gold because it's very rarely covered in any of these kind of workshops. And these are the tricks and bits that all the organizations do, but they don't hide it on purpose. It's just that it's not an official bit of any proposal, so it's not an integral part of any course. You won't learn this in school, but this is what's being done very often, adjusting the proposal for different funding goals and opportunities. What I meant by that is, as you start to apply for things, as you start to put ideas on paper, you'll have several finished or unfinished project proposals. they don't have to die once they're finished, or once you've gotten the funding for them, or you were refused. Keep them, don't delete them, very important. You have resources in those written project proposals. So not just the bits about yourself, about the organization, statistics about the community, those are always good as well. And you will need to adjust them a little bit. And as Orla said, you know, tweak them towards even getting yourself, presenting yourself even better. But you might actually have a complete project proposal just from combining two of them. So always have your folder with your project proposals that are old or finished or just drafts. And when you're reading through new public calls, have a habit of trying to remember what you already have there, and maybe you can combine those into designing the perfect one. So the good way to start is to go and see what the funders' objectives are. It could be rural development, employment, heritage, and then try to remember if you have a project proposal that touches on those bits. Then what you do next is you kind of find the connecting points. You find that you can highlight, you can use visual tools and highlight for yourself in those documents what you can copy and paste and tweak and use. It's very similar to the process of adjusting your CV when applying for different jobs. If you've ever done that in your life or done that for someone else, you know what this means. So it just going back into your skills as an organization, who you are, and seeing what you have written and how it can be changed to suit this public call that you're applying to now. So determine what you can use, determine the keywords in the public call. So what are they talking about? What are the issues? And kind of try and see and test if you change the wording a little bit, if you change the words in the old project proposal and swap them with the keywords that are there now, just see if that will work. If it would, then take it and adjust it. And then again, you need to do your research and see, have circumstances and statistics changed in the community that you want to approach and talk about, and whose problems you're solving. And you do need to check back on the things that you merged. On the copy paste side of things, you want to go back and check and see if everything's consistent and if you're actually making any mistakes. So those are some little risks of using old project proposals, but it's just being diligent and working properly on it, and you'll be fine then. But just don't throw them away. That was kind of the point of this slide. So we came to the end of this bit, introducing the skill of writing project proposal for everyone, and we introduced several funding opportunities. We'll have a little break. Just before the break, we'll have the opportunity to pose questions, and after that, Orla will introduce new funding opportunities for you. If anyone has any questions, which I can't imagine that you don't have any, to be honest, this would be a good time to ask, and we'll do our best to give you relevant answers and the ones that you can use further. So if you have a question, if you can just go on the little microphone icon there and unmute yourself and just talk to us then.
Can I come in there, please?
Thank you. Yeah, Mary. We can hear you. No, we can't. Sorry.
Okay.
There you are.
No, I know from doing some applications you are confined by the number of words. So I suppose maybe attaching additional documents or whatever, and I suppose how to give yourself the best profile without, you know, with the limitation on words. Any comments?
Yeah, sometimes I can give a comment from my experience, and then Orla, if you have further insight, you can also say that it's pain to have that situation. It is. it's good to have versions of your document. So you have everything ready and written in your Word document there, and then you're doing the copy paste. Now, it's usually in Word, so you can see, or sometimes it's online, but Word is a good, even if there's an online application, first do it in your Word document, because it has a word counter or character counter. Now, be sure to make the difference, to differentiate between those two, what the donor is limiting. And then take your portion of text, portion by portion, and put it through the Word and through the relevant counter, and see how many words you have to shave off. And then highlight the most important bits. So don't just take the portion of the, I know you wouldn't do that, but I have to say it, you wouldn't just take the portion of the text and delete it. You have to keep what's relevant and what matters. So use the little highlighter. These are really the tips. That's how I do it. I use the highlighting tool and I highlight what's most important. I also see, I go and look into where do I have those extra words, or how can I rephrase something to say it in a shorter way. And it's a painful process. It takes time, but once you're into it, you get going. So first try to reshape what you're saying and say it in shorter sentences. Then if it's still not enough, see what you can delete, but what doesn't put in danger whatever you want to say. So keep the yellow bits that you kind of marked for yourself. And that's the only way to, and never lose the most important bits, you know. And you might find that the goals that you phrased are 3 rows long, and that you need to change that you need to rephrase them into being shorter. So it's actually a good way. They want you to speak in a clear and concise manner, and when they're making you do that, they're actually teaching you how to use that skill of talking like that or writing like that. So that's how I do it. It's kind of trial and error, and you have to adjust it. It's never the case of just writing something and putting that into form. If they allow for additional, you've asked about attachments and amendments. If you're not sure, are they allowing for that, contact them and ask them. If it's something that you really need more space for, you can always pose that question and ask them, can I put an attachment to this? It could be clear from the public call that you can attach something, so then you don't have to bother.
One other tip that I use a lot is that I would put documents either into a Dropbox or into some other external place on OneDrive, and then insert a link, a hyperlink in the application that people can go to in each section as evidence of need or claims that I'm making, or an organizational chart or whatever. So I believe that you know, around half of assessors will click the link and others won't, because I can actually see when they assess when they click the link or not. But we're not doing anything wrong, but we're just giving them the opportunity to find out more within the word count. So you can put into OneDrive or Dropbox or wherever it is and just give a link to it. Yeah. Okay.
Any more questions?
I'm conscious we're going to be under pressure for time. So if we can have another discussion at the end. Can we be back at 11:30? Is that okay? It's going to be the shortest of breaks, and we'll be back into an absolute whirlwind of half an hour of opportunities coming at you, and some great and we've tried to do the Late Show one for everybody in the audience in terms of the funding that's available. So you'll definitely come back after your comfort break. Is that all right? So we'll all stay online, and we'll be back at 11:30. All right. Okay. I think we better start, because I'm conscious that we've a fair bit to go through. Again, the recording will keep can be caught up any little snippet that's missed afterwards. I suppose the first part of this section is to look at, you know, where are the funding opportunities and how do you hear of them? have you ever been or seen the fact that you see something after the deadline has passed and you're like, oh no, that would have been ideal for us, but we didn't know about it? So what I need you to do is to, I suppose, to become aware and plug into some resources and feeds that will give you the information that you need. And some of these you already may have or maybe already using. So one of the first ones, I suppose, it's been around a long time, and I use this very, very a lot in the past and continued to do it, is activelink.ie, and it's an online network for not-for-profit organizations such as yourselves. A great website that's updated virtually daily, and they also have a really, really good email that they send to you once a week that you can sign up for, and it summarizes all the activity, I suppose, that's happened all that week. A great Facebook page as well. So again, if you're social media savvy, like their page and you will see alerts come up. But again, it's been around a long time. It's a really, really good one to plug into, and it will send you funding alerts. For example, one of the alerts that they have on us right now, and I was thinking of our Una One friends again, but there's a community food initiative that is open at the moment, and it's funding available for remote healthy eating projects. It's through Safe Food Ireland, but it is a project that would deliver a community food initiative at home, and it's to support families in their own homes, develop cooking skills and healthy eating habits. So it's a lovely, concise funding support that's available. So it would be a lovely side project or to enhance farmers market or some of the other projects that you're doing. So I just thought it was lovely. So that was one that was just there on activelink.ie when I got their email during the week, or I think it comes out on a Friday. Obviously the public participation network, Roscommon ppn.ie, is a good resource, again on Facebook and also through their website. If you're not members of the PPN, I would really encourage you to be a member, because it plugs you into lots of information. For example, there's a wind farm community benefit fund open right now. It's only available for 2 areas in Roscommon, in which Rooski is one. And it's also, I suppose, where the county council would push a lot of their alerts through. So it's really important. For example, the town and village renewal scheme that was completed just over the summer. But at least if you're plugged into the PPN and getting their alerts, you'll know about these funds from the start. Another really good one that's been around a long time, although a lot of the information in the Wheel you have to pay for if you're not an example. So Wheel is an organisation that represents charities and communities. So they have a section called the wheel.ie/funding, which brings you to a funding point section. Besides that, there is a funding advice and guidance section that's completely free. So they will look at fundraising essentials, fundraising from the public, applying to grant makers and European funding. So there's lovely information in there. Have a look at it. If you want to subscribe and feel it's worthwhile, now Funding Point would have all of the information in one place, but as I said, you have to pay for it. For members of the Wheel, it's €125 in addition to your membership, or for non-members, it's €200 per annum, which sounds a lot, but they bring together some hidden gems that we mightn't know about. So, for example, the literacy projects from the Forest na Gaeilge, there's a music award for the Arts Council. So they categorize them according to the deadline that's coming up or by the topic. So you get a great opportunity to search and to give you an idea. Now, these were the ones I was able to see without subscribing. So the deadline is a bit tight there now. You have only 2 or 3 days to go and find that information yourself. But subside now to gain access to a dozen more funding deadlines brings you into that. So maybe that's something that a number of groups could come together and share a subscription or something. It might be worthwhile. I'm not sure if Roscommon Leader Partnership subscribe, but again, it's something that would pay for itself in the long run, I feel. Community Foundation Community Foundation Ireland is a very strong funding platform. They have a grant support hub. Again, I've given you the information or the web link here. When you land on this, you'll see that there are a section down here at the bottom, the grant support hub, the open grants that are available through the Community Foundation for Ireland, and the types of grants available. A really good video as well. So I've given you the link. We won't look at it now because we're short on time. Please have a look at it either here or through the website itself. So the biggest one that they are promoting at the moment is the national level funding opportunity, which is the RT Does Comic Relief. So you'll remember this was a programme quite a few months ago now, but it raised a significant amount of funding that has now been dispersed through Community Foundation for Ireland. There is a specific video, a webinar. Now it takes about 2 minutes to get into it, so skip to about 2 minutes because you're waiting for them to start. But that is a really good one, and I'll show you some examples of what's available through that. But before I move on to that, you can see that the other types of funding that is typically given through the Community Foundation for Ireland, so COVID Response Fund, the Bank of Ireland one was mentioned on it, Early Childhood Ireland, the Environment and Nature Fund. They give money for mergers of community organisations that want to join together, social change grants, older persons funds, and the women's fund. Now they're not open at the moment, but subscribe and you will get alerted and keep an eye on when it's available. So back to the RT Does Comic Relief, as I said, it's open right now. There are 2 funds available. And they're not really for direct your day-to-day operations, but they could be an important contribution to your future. So they have a demand for digital strand, which is to address the challenge of where you cannot do as much face-to-face or direct delivery anymore, and you've been forced to move online when working with vulnerable or at-risk individuals, or your target groups, that it's to address that challenge. So it's helping organisations to adapt programmes or develop new ones by using digital tools or online technology. So that's one. So the digital side, which we've mentioned to you from the start of this project, is a big game changer for the way that you are working. And the other one is adapt and respond. So it's about your organisational capacity and how you can get support to build that capacity to deliver existing or new services in response to COVID. So it's going to strengthen your organisation. So that could be, taking on an accountant, or, different things that could help you to adapt and respond. I think additional staff can be allocated to there if there is somebody required as part of your organisation. So the funding levels, just under, it depends on the turnover that you have. So at the top layer here, you have your level 1 to 5. So for example, under level 1, if you have turnover of 250,000, the demand for digital strand is up to 3,000, adapt and respond is up to 3,000. You can apply for both. So you've got a total there of €6,000 that will help you, I suppose, adjust and position the organisation in the face of COVID. So that's the theme that they have gone for through this funding stream this time. The deadline is the end of September, 30th of December. So they're really looking for collaboration projects as well. And they've said that they will, where you have 2 or more organisations coming together, that there will be a higher level of funding awarded, which is great. So all the details are on the links provided. Pobble, many of you know Pobble a lot better than I know Pobble, and I know Pobble fairly well. It provides, I suppose, appointed by government to deliver a project management support to about 33 programmes, and those programmes are spread across 3 areas: the early learning and care, inclusive employment and enterprise, and then social inclusion and equality. So the 23 programmes I've just given some screenshots of the programs that they run on an individual basis. I'm not going to go into them now today because we literally won't have time, but you can see that they were on the website that when it comes to programs, you'll see applications closed, the stability scheme. I think they announced phase 3 of this yesterday. There was 4 or 5 Roscommon projects on it, which was great to see, but pity there wasn't more. It's been a little bit controversial, that programme. Applications are closed there as well, so it'll be interesting to see whether that opens up later on. Community Services Programme, I know Mary and the team in Roscommon Leader Partnership through Westpick and James Dunnan are working with a number of you in you know, working to maximise your opportunities under that programme. That's particularly, I suppose, the new projects that don't have that scheme at the moment, and the rest of you rely on it a lot, so it's very, very important. Some other ones, I always keep an eye on dormant accounts funds. There's always some interesting project funding in there for special target group activities. So unfortunately closed at the moment, but one to be watched at all stages. Healthy Ireland Fund is another lovely one that has nice defined money for so it could be for our Lochry anglers, it could be for you know, the hub, Strokes Town, anyone I suppose that has an opportunity to work with healthy focused projects basically. So there's lots of them in here, and just, you know, 27 of them into the website and have a good route around it and see what is important to you there. In terms of what your overall plan is. A lot of the programs that are delivered through Roscommon Leader Partnership are in here, so they apply for the funding, whether it be SciCap or Rural Social Scheme or Leader, and then filter that funding down to the community. So if there's a difference in some that you can apply from yourself, or you apply through Roscommon Leader Partnership. Oops, I've got very fancy on this one. So local government funding is really important. So by that I mean money from Roscommon County Council. So they provide different funding streams to community groups across their different council departments. So it's important to keep an eye on these as they arise, and they arise at different times of the year. So in particular, the Arts Office, the Heritage, Community and Enterprise, and the Environment Department, who will probably look after Tidy Towns and Amenity Scheme grants, are the ones that you need to look for. Again, the PPN is probably the best place, or Roscommon County Council indeed, or have a beautiful new website. Well, it's relatively new, but it's a really cool website. Plus, you can do a funding search in it. Actually, do a search and type in funding, and all their funding stream comes up. The one that's now open in Roscommon is relevant to a good few of you, and it's for community centres and community buildings. So the difference, so most of you have a community building because you operate from a building that is serving the community, if that makes sense. So that is important. The link is here on the bottom. Many of you are probably familiar with this, but this one is for capital projects only. So it's development and renovation, once-off maintenance of premises, so it's not for regular routine, but for you know, if it needed to be painted or whatever. Community amenities, so that'd be outdoor stuff, and you have in here the town parks, common areas, spaces, development of youth clubs or facilities, sports, recreation, CCTV, public realm, so that would be lovely, you know, seating, or if there was improvements needed in Lochry angling in terms of access, that type of project. Streetscaping, play, recreation spaces, energy projects also fit in here. And the new one that's in this list now is the purchase of equipment and adaptations needed as a result of COVID. So again, very, very tight deadline on this. It's the closing the 11th of September. So this week at 4 p.m. And it's done online. So you need to register via My Online Services at Roscommon. The link is there. They have a dedicated email that you can email to, and they have a really good PDF that you can access and see the detail behind the project. So again, only a few days on it, but it could be well worthwhile putting something in if you have a capital need that you want to address in the near future. Okay. The CLOR programme is an annual programme again, but this is typically July, or this year the deadline was July, and it was a little bit different to normal. CLOR would typically fund small scale infrastructure projects in rural areas basically, but this year the fund was tailored to help rural communities respond to COVID. Another one that has responded, I suppose, 3 measures, excuse my grammar there, but there was one that was for schools and community safety. The other one was community recreation. And those 2 you applied through the local county council for, and the community wellbeing support was direct to the department, and it was for Meals on Wheels and link services and mobility and cancer care treatment. So under measures 1 and 2, up to 10 applications were invited by the local authorities to submit or to fund. But Clár, when it comes back to normal, please God, in 2021, is a lovely measure that would be for small scale infrastructure in your community. We've mentioned online throughout the programme, and we're lucky in Roscommon that the Roscommon Local Enterprise Office will fund the online presence for not-for-profits and social enterprises. Some counties don't, so in fairness, Roscommon are brilliant in this regard. The scheme, some of you might have got it in the past, but you can get it again. You can now apply for a second voucher. It's on the second content there, where you need to do an upgrade. And they've also changed the criteria in that it's now 10% funding required, but you can use it for payment facilities, online booking systems, a new app, anything, I suppose, digital, and also subscriptions to low-cost online retail platform solutions. So I'm working with the community in Donegal that are using it to set up their Shopify account and using it for search engine optimization and all of that. Again, this fund is going to be closed on the 30th of September. So it's localenterprise.ie is the link there. Sorry, I should have included that on the slide, and I will before we send it out to you. So that's just, I suppose, a whistle-stop tour through some of the funding that's available, but I suppose making a funding plan and this baking for success, getting yourself organized and getting that, annual timeline of when things open up and when you need to be, looking for your funding. I wanted to mention charitable trusts because it's relevant to actually quite a few of you, and these are bodies that are set up to do good. I'm not keeping an eye on chat now. Oh, thank you. Sonia is absolutely using our chat facility to add all the links as I'm speaking, and these will be also sent to you afterwards. So you can get them in 2 places, so we're not going to miss out. Charitable trusts are a number of trusts and foundations based in Ireland, but some offering grants in Ireland even though they're based in UK or Europe. They will fund capital costs, and some will fund running costs or salaries of projects. And they really want to fund innovative projects. Unfortunately, many of them don't publicise what they do. So it's up to us to go and find them, and some of them keep quite a low profile. One that unfortunately isn't available to Roscommon is the JP McManus Benevolent Fund, even though he's originally, I think, from Marigna, but it's on the website. It says it's for the Midwest, but that's a great example of somebody using their wealth, I suppose, to invest in communities. It's well worth looking at that website as well, just to see JP the Benevolent Fund. So many of them, and this goes back to Sonia saying about, many of them don't have application forms, so you need to write a letter. So again, write a personal letter. You will, making time, to find out that, information about them, and making sure that your information is up and running, and just make sure that you're getting, a good profile of your project from others. An example of a trust, although they've also changed a little bit in what they're doing, is the Ireland funds. Now, over the years, I've used the Ireland funds to support many projects, cultural, heritage, youth. They are a really, really good organisation. And again, if you have a good look at their website, this year they've changed their focus and are responding to charities and NGOs in the following priority areas. So food and distribution, disability support, family support, elderly services, access to education, mental health and community support. And this is from their website, that, you know, they're providing support where the need is greatest, and that they're not open for new applications at the time because they had opened earlier on, but they would typically, you know, and are expected to open it up again before the end of the year. It's really good perhaps to look at their video, that in normal circumstances, and we go back to the culture and the heritage and what they do, I suppose, in terms of a fund. This is funding that's raised, I suppose, throughout the world. They have big gala dinners in New York, and you know, well, obviously their funding is going to change now as well, but you know, as a result of COVID. But they've been very, very supportive to the West of Ireland projects and the border county projects, and but you don't have to be a border county; it's open to all of Ireland. Again, whistle stop tour. I find that Active Link are really good for highlighting some of the trusts that are available. So, example, there's one called Merlin that looks after community gardens and landscaping, etc. in the community. But it's you know, Active Link will be able to give you some example of trusts and funds. Philanthropyireland.ie as well should be looked up and see what funds are in there. We mentioned crowdfunding earlier on, and we had the example of the Secret Valley project that is working on it. But because so many of you are involved in creative projects, I thought it was worth our while mentioning funded.ie, which is a crowdfunding particularly for creative projects. And you can see there the 12 areas that they typically provide a platform to fund to projects that are setting up. Interestingly, Carrick and Shannon Water Music Festival used this fund to raise funding some years ago now, but imagine that they raised over €6,500 across 64 donors, so roughly €100 each. And I've given the link there to the fund that they did at that time, an interesting one to look at. But funded is really relevant. And I suppose I just took two examples of live funds that are open at the moment, because I was just thinking of who we have on this course. So I wanted to bring to Ross FM's attention that Dublin Digital Radio, which is looking at a moving studio and building a space, I suppose, for bands and interviews and panel talks or whatever. They've raised over their funds. So again, you know, you can set a target, and if you raise more, that's great, you can keep the extra. But they've raised over €20,000 and then closed that funding opportunity. And here's a nice one of an arts program, somebody wanting to fund a program of arts, which would be for performances, exhibitions and other events. So it's not capital, but it is, you know, their ongoing costs of putting on productions in the organisation. And they raised just over €3,000, which is great. It is absolutely brilliant. And I suppose it just digitises or provides a platform for you to raise funding and share it amongst your community in the digital age. So please have a good look around Funded. Some great examples in there. You can see their text that they've used to raise the finance, and it will give you a good idea of how you could position one that to suit yourselves. But it can be for anything really, I suppose, in the areas that we've mentioned earlier. One that was very close to my heart, now I'm going back a few years, but then I'm around a long time. We worked, and was supported by Roscommon Leader Partnership, we worked with Trinity Arts in Castlereagh, which was the Holy Trinity Church when it was being developed as an arts and cultural space. Really, there's no enterprise in it, so it's basically arts and culture, and it was doing up the beautiful old Trinity church into a community arts centre. So what we did was we developed a fundraising programme and a patronage scheme. And you'll remember earlier on this course, hopefully, we talked to you about building your tribe, and this is your community of people that are invested in you and have an interest in you and want to support you. So we tapped into, with a great committee there, into a lot of the diaspora and connections of Castlereagh and everything, and developed a prospectus and a special website at the time just to land on this particular area. So it was to match funding other their source of match funding for other publicly funded ones. What we have in it, I suppose, is a description of the project, what their plan is, and what the centre will have. So we showed what the impact would be of 220-seater auditorium and theatre and artist space and whatever. So then we asked for support, and as a registered charity, the supports then will qualify for tax relief, which is an important aspect, but it's not always important. I know lots of people give and never claim the tax back, but basically what we had was a Friends of Trinity Arts program, and we asked people to sign up for a 5-year period, because this was a big fundraiser. It was a big job to take this derelict church and bring it back into life. So we had a number of different gold, silver, bronze. Now most of them obviously were the bronze, which were €100 annually for 5 years. And then we had some high profile patronage donation opportunities to, you know, sponsor a stained glass or whatever. I don't think anybody did in the end, unfortunately, because this was during our last recession. I just see we're fully back into recession now, but this was during the last recession. But I'll share with you that we actually raised €30,000. Well, I'd say that's about 13 years ago, which was a lot of money at the time, through this program. So it was a brochure and a website that we just landed on, and then their website just became the main funding, or the main communication tool. This was before there was crowdfunding platforms. This was crowdfunding Mark 1, but I think the whole area of patronage and tapping into your tribe, you know, and doing that in a measured and way is important. I know by talking to many of you, your typical fundraising events have been, you know, just annihilated as a result of COVID. Some of you are struggling to get online, and I just was conscious of including some ways to show how that could happen. So that's just a really whistle-stop tour of some of the funding that's out there. Secondly, where you should be tapping into and plugging into to get that funding, I suppose in a you know, that you know that is coming down the track and that you can make a funding plan, and some extra in terms of how you can look at fundraising. As I said, the Wheel have some great resources. They run workshops dedicated to online fundraising and stuff. So again, it'd be well worthwhile looking at some of those, and we can certainly help you in that regard. I'm doing some work with Ross FM as part of the mentoring program on how to help on their online fundraising. So myself and Sanya are really keen, I suppose, to take you full circle and keep an eye to the future as to where the trends are coming, and you as social enterprises, community enterprises, need to keep to the fore, I suppose, and be I suppose tapping into trends that are happening right across Europe and beyond. Sanya, that is a serious cake, and I know you picked this as a result of the our fondant, and that went through there's a
reason for this. I got hungry when I was doing these things. There's a reason for this kind of cake. You know, in baking, it's a trend now to have all these posh cakes for birthdays.
The other pops beside it are a bit good as well, yeah. I'm conscious it's 12. I'm just going to ask people to stay with us for another few minutes. We'll go through this fairly quickly. I know we had a lot of content today, and again, the recording hopefully will help you thereafter.
Yeah, we can fly through these.
Yeah, great. I'll just keep going for a few minutes, Sanya, but it's trends to keep as part of your ongoing process as a social entrepreneur. And what we just wanted to highlight to you was the priority social problems, I suppose, and how they link into how you mention those, and you show that you're addressing those as part of funding applications. We really wanted to mention the circular economy to you, and also, again, we're mentioning technology. We're not letting you off that technology hook at all. But how many of you are familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals? And I suppose these are really important, and they're part of what we do as social enterprise organizations. But there's 17 development goals that were I suppose brought to bear by the UN, and they have a huge impact on the way that we do. So for example, no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being. These apply to every community, whether I'm in Africa or I'm in Roscommon. These are the sustainable development goals that help us. So decent work and economic growth. Isn't that lovely? They also mention, you know, the partnership for goals, the life on the land, which would be, you know, the agriculture, and then aquaculture is beside it, climate action, and then our sustainable cities and communities, and within that they also include culture, etc. So have a look at these development goals, because if I'd love to see you mention those and build them into your planning, that you are addressing those, it would be absolutely brilliant. To bring it to your attention, the Wheel actually had a separate project at one point called sparkchange.ie. Now it's a year old at this point, but it's so relevant, and it invites you to share your story about what you're doing in the community in Ireland to spark change. And you do this every day of the week, and I think it'd be great to get your stories up there. I just wanted to share with you some of them. Actually, one of them that I mentioned later on in the slide is a project in Westport that I've worked with called Edible Landscapes. And it's about, you know, where we have, you know, tidy towns and whatever, but where we get, you know, we build in some edible landscapes into it in terms of teaching children how to grow vegetables, etc. So there's some lovely projects in there. Have a look at that website. It's some real inspiration. It looks at what is sustainable as you as a community, and how you know, how it can be brought to bear. We love this project, very close to home with the Roscommon Women's Network and the Rediscovery Centre, but the whole area of circular economy. So this is a big word for reusing, refurbishing, recycling, and bringing back materials, I suppose, safely returning them to the planet. So again, a brilliant example of this is they've been piloting a textile upcycling training project. Really good Facebook page, Cycle Up is the project, and they're looking at, you know, addressing the large amount of unsold textiles in charity shops by repurposing the garments, and at the same time providing training for women involved in Roscommon Women's Network. A brilliant project that fits under this title of circular economy. Other examples of the circular economy that I just thought it would be interesting to bring to you is, I love this project called Baby Market Ireland, and this is where you hold events nationally to actually bring used all the paraphernalia that comes with babies. And believe you me, having twins, at one stage I knew all about said paraphernalia, and must have spent I don't know how long on Dundee trying to offload everything and buy as I've needed it. But this is a specific one for the baby market in Ireland. But you can see what they're trying to do. They're trying to reuse, recycle, get people you know, getting value from the item that was made in the first place. I love this project. It's an Australian project, but it's Adelaide Remakery. And what they've done is, and I'm thinking of the Hub and Structure and Unamon, but they retail quality products remade by remakers as such, by holding workshops and offering a low-cost service to teach people how to make and repair their own goods. It's a lovely Facebook page, but this is a huge trend that I think communities will tap into more and more. So again, we just wanted to bring it to your attention. Is there something that is relevant to yourselves in this regard? I mentioned the Connected to Nature part earlier, and the Sustainable Development Goals and this project Edible Landscapes in County Mayo, but the community role in biodiversity and climate change is huge. So you as community organisations and social enterprises are ideal test beds for innovative practices to get citizens thinking about, I suppose, environmental protection, climate change and responsible consumption. Edible Landscapes is a beautiful social enterprise based in Westport. They assist Westport Tidy Town, which is multi-award winning over the years, on I suppose repurposing some of the work that it's about, making smarter food choices and within a climate environment. So well worth a look and seeing, is there anything there that you can build into your project that you can help in terms of becoming a biodiversity and climate change agent in the future. And again, Sanya, back to yourself, and this is our final before a quick wrap up. But just technology, we couldn't not end on technology, as we've been, yeah, probably.
Just to recap on the things that we used to talk about before, and to remind you that don't be afraid of technology. You're already using it. It's probably in your pocket. It's your phone, and just use it to work for you. Don't be doing the opposite thing and working for the technology. So you can trade online. You can use that online trading voucher and make your presence online. Even if you have a Facebook account, you can do loads of things online. Even if you communicate, respond to messages, use that instant respond messaging tool on Facebook. That's something already. You've learned how to develop your online identity, be it a logo or storytelling options. There are instant messages that you can send and use to save time, reminders that you can use for yourself. You can share and reshare same content on different social platforms, so it saves time and effort. You can cut costs because the technology is there. Obviously, you're doing things from home, so travel costs, office space costs could be reduced. You can communicate better with customers and staff just by being there more often with little support bits and reassurance bits. It's much easier than to wait for someone to show up at your door. And don't forget the option to go online looking for volunteers. Not each and every volunteer has to be physically there with you. Some of them can actually support you with your marketing and administration, which would be good for them and good for you as well.
Brilliant. Great, sorry. And the final one, I suppose, really important, the diversity, inclusion, and I've added another section to that called belonging. So again, we know that after COVID, the future of work and communities is kind of inclusive, you know, and that inclusion means that you as organizations, and you do this so well, that you're inviting diverse groups to take part in community life and your role there. And don't be shy about that. Make sure that you are telling your funders and those that support you about your work in that area. And the bit that I love at the end of this is kind of, it's the belonging part that makes each individual feel accepted for who they are. So that we're not just, being diverse and being inclusive, but we're helping people belong to our communities. And I think that's really, really important. So we are finally, I suppose, we've brought you over the last five sessions, I suppose, on a quite diverse program, but I hope it's added value to what you do, and that you've got a lot from it. I just wanted to highlight to you that we are working with some of you on your mentor sessions, but there are a few that we still need to make plans with. So a reminder, can we make those plans, and soon? Over the next week as well, we'll be asking you to help us to reflect and evaluate the programme, and give guidance, I suppose, to Mary on how we've performed, but also where recommendations for a future collaboration, or where we can bring this to. I suppose it's really important to say that it's been, the dynamic of it is so different when you're doing this online compared to being in a room, and it strikes me, I miss being in a room right now and having the cup of tea with you all and enjoying the banter and the chats. But hopefully we can get that, use the mentoring to the very best of our ability. I very much, just a huge thanks from all our team for your kindness, for your encouragement, for your patience during the odd technical hitch. But I hope that we've added value, and I suppose we've been very conscious that we've saved everything, that we've put everything into a video format on YouTube, and you've got the links, so that this resource is there for you. And just to say that we are here for you, so please, don't be a stranger, and keep in touch with us, and we will really look forward to finishing and getting a lot out of your mentor sessions in the next little while. Okay.
Thank you, everyone. I just agree with everything you just said, Orla. So we're here, and it's been a pleasure, really. And in a way, I'll be missing the Tuesday sessions. It's been nice to meet you all and to give the bits and pieces of knowledge that we have, give it forward. Thanks. Thanks very much,
Thank
Sonia.
Thank you, everybody.
Can I just come in here and just say thank you to you in the Momentum team? I think it has been a very interesting series of workshops. And just for the social enterprises to be aware that the project is just until the end of October, so don't be putting things on the long finger. There's use those resources in there and Momentum to get you up to speed. And I do know there's a whole lot of, I keep, you know, bombing down other workshops down the line to you, but I suppose because it's a confined project, but I think it's an opportunity for you to upskill, and I'm learning, definitely learning a lot. So thank you to everyone, and I'll have ongoing engagement like you, but a special thanks to Orla and all the team. Thank you and well done.
Thanks, Orla. Thanks, Sonia.
Roscommon. I should have had the Roscommon flag up, my precious Roscommon flag here in Galway to sign it. We'll keep the faith, everybody. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Orla. Always
Thanks,
great.
Sonia.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a good day, everyone.